Okay, so today I'm going to be installing a disc brake conversion kit on my 1968 Volkswagen single cab pickup. This truck originally came from the factory with four-wheel drum, so I'm hoping that this disc brake kit will stop it a little quicker. Here's the kit I'll be installing. This kit comes from Type E Motorsports. It's the Easy Stop kit for the bay window buses from 68 to 70. The kit includes a series of adapter plates, new bearings, seals, dust caps. It's got hoses, all the hardware, and the brackets for the calipers. The idea with this kit is that you get to pick and purchase separately your brake rotors, your calipers, and your pads. So you can choose whichever ones work best for you. They do give you part numbers so that you know exactly what year, make, and model these parts come from. The kit ends up replacing your drum brakes with a 10 1/4, I believe, vented rotor. This thing's pretty good size. Got some good weight to it. Should work out really well and stop the truck. Okay, I've got the bus up on jack stands. I've got the wheels off. Let's get started. First thing we gotta do is pop out the speedometer cable. It's just a small clip. Pull the cable out from the back. Pop off the dust cover. This axle nut is held in with a Allen key bolt that squeezes the nut together. Pull the nut off a little. Probably have to back off the shoes to get this apart. Front bearing and washer is going to pop out with it. Okay, with the drum off, you can pull out the 4 15mm bolts. Bolts go through the wheel cylinders, through the backing plate, and into the spindle. We have on these buses, we have a little bracket that holds the brake hose in. Pop that free. See if I can get enough pull. All right, get that out of the way. so that we can get to cleaning everything up. This truck had brakes probably 2 years ago put in it. It has the passenger side brake drum is an aftermarket one that was on the bus when I got it. Overall, that drum it has something wrong with it. I believe it's too big of an inside diameter. So no matter how much you adjust the shoes, they're only hitting the outside edge of the shoe. They're not actually hitting the entire shoe. They're just hitting the ends of the shoe itself. And I had a really heavy pedal in this truck. Took a lot of effort to slow it down, and it didn't. It just wasn't great to drive. I love the truck, but it was just tough. You get on the highway or something, you're doing 60. If somebody was to stop short, you'd be in trouble. And that's kind of my whole reason for getting this easy stop brake kit to switch to the disc brakes, just so that we can get everything stopping good. I mean, the truck's not very fast anyway, but it's still, you know what a bus looks like. You don't want to be the guy in the back of the accident, so your legs won't enjoy it. So figured give this kit a try. I saw the kit on the Samba. Looked pretty good. Price is good. The engineering that went into it, I really like, where you're basically using pre-existing pads, rotors, and calipers from, a very common set of vehicles. And that's really nice to me. You don't have to go crazy with, one-off parts or other types of brakes, your unsealed calipers of your performance brakes, stuff like that. So that was kind of what drew me to it. I decided to make this video because I couldn't find anyone online showing anything on installing these. And for some reason there's some silicone or something in here from a long time ago, I guess. And I figured, so there's got to be other people out there that maybe are hesitant about buying this brake kit because of the fact that they can't, they're not positive on how things go together. Even with the directions are great, but it's nice to see it in front of you and kind of get an understanding for what it is you actually have to do and what's going to get modified and, what could be put back to stock someday if you're into that kind of thing. So that's kind of my reasoning for it. I do a lot of shopping before I actually purchase anything. And there was some good feedback on it on Samba, stuff like that. And what really sold me is an internet friend of mine. I had posted and said, hey, has anybody used this? What's your experience with it? And a guy, I really only know him on the internet, but I trust him. We've traded parts before and stuff like that. And he's a good guy. He said, oh yeah, no problem. I've used those kits a bunch of times and they work out great. So I figured, well, if he's used them, he's had no issues with them, then it's worth it to me to give it a shot and try it and see how this thing goes. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. Get all this garbage cleaned up. So I'm pretty excited about it. It'd be nice, I have some plans for the truck later on. Different ring and pinion, things like that, to get a little more speed out of it. And to me, the first step on that is get it so that it can stop, because you can go as fast as you want, but if you can't stop, it really doesn't matter. So that's what we're doing. And I won't lie to you, I already did the other side so that I could get an easier feel for how this whole thing goes together, so that, it's not last second while I'm recording it. And it went pretty smoothly. And I'll show you any little ins and outs that I had to do separate from the instructions, just to kind of get a good idea of what's happening. And there really wasn't much. It's mostly just cleaning, so. All right. Let me get this cleaned up a little more. and we'll get on to the next step. Okay, so one thing the instructions do tell you is they tell you to test fit all of this because of burrs and things like that that you can end up with either on the spindle more likely, or possibly I guess the bearing. But I mean, these are really nice, good quality Timken bearings, so I really don't see any reason that these would have any kind of a problem. When you go to throw this bearing on, I'm just doing it dry, and I'm just looking for a spot where it might get kind of hung up and see if there is any kind of a like a burr on the spindle. The other side was especially bad. So all I did is I kind of went around with a fine sandpaper and just kind of cleaned up all the junk that's, you know, been stuck on this thing for 50 some odd years. You know, who knows who had this truck before me and what kind of a job they did to it, if a bearing got frozen on it, or you never really know. So just kind of clean up things, make sure that they're going to slide on nice. And in this case, this one's just there. So we got a nice slide in there. There's a little bit of hang up there, but I think with some grease, the other side was about the same, but I did have a big burr on the other side. So I think that should slide on just fine. Try the outer one too. This one slides on great, so there's nothing really hanging up on that. So those are great. Another thing I did find on this is when your original bolt goes through the wheel cylinder, through the backing plate, and into these holes, you're really only threading in a small amount into this hole. And if you look into your hole, once you pull these bolts out, you're going to see there's a ton of rust in there. And these bolts are going to have to go, it's not a lot deeper into it, but they do go in a little deeper. So what I ended up doing on the other side, and I'm going to just do the same thing on this side, is I took a brush like this. It's just a cheap plumbing brush for, I think it's a 1/2 inch one, but it's just a wire brush that's used for plumbing to clean out a pipe before you sweat it. So I'm just going to run this through a couple times and kind of clean out all that rust. And you can see all the dust coming out of there. It's probably all kinds of stuff in there, junk. This truck came from New Mexico, so a lot of the underside of it was caked with, like, I don't know if it was clay or some kind of a, you know, a red dirt that was really just caked on. And I suspect that's what's in the back of these holes. I'm in New England, so everything up here is generally pretty rusty if it's an original New England vehicle. So this is, I'd rather have dirt and a little bit of rust stuck in there than no floors in the thing. So just give it a good clean out. Make sure everything's going to go. I did also, on the other side, I had a couple that were really, really stuck with stuff, and I ran a tap. It's a 10 by 1.5 tap, and I just ran the tap through the holes just to make sure that, you know, everything was out of it. I don't know, this side actually looks better than the other side, but the spindle altogether does. But it might be a good idea to do that if needed. Side looks okay though. Yeah, these are going in fairly easy, so. All right, should be probably all right. Let me grab that bracket. Be right back. Okay, got our holes all pretty well cleaned out. Now this bracket that attaches is to mount the caliper. The directions say that it goes in this direction with this portion of it towards the center of the bus. You don't want to go this way, nothing's going to fit. So get it in there in this direction, get the bolts started, and we'll torque them down. You probably could either paint or powder coat all these brackets and all this stuff. I chose not to on this truck, only because I drive it a lot, and it's kind of an original truck and has a lot of little surface rust and things on it anyway. So I really didn't think it needed it, at least this go around. Maybe next time I do brakes, I'll kind of clean everything up and paint them. My plan is if this kit works out well, I'm gonna buy another set for my double cab. It's a 65. So they have a kit available. This kit, like I said, this kit's for the 68 to 70. They do have a kit available for, I believe it's like late 63 to 67. So if this works out well, then I'm definitely gonna buy another one. Okay, so the directions say that we're torquing this to 31 foot-pounds, or I'm sorry, 30 foot-pounds. I found that seems pretty, doesn't seem like it's a lot of torque on this. So I kind of went a little over on the other side, so I'm gonna do the same thing here, just because I felt that it was a little bit better to be a little tighter on this bracket. And I purposely didn't put anything in there. You probably could do a Loctite or something along the lines of that in there. I'm not a huge fan of Loctite, even the blue. To me, I feel like it gums up threads, and then later down the road, it's just a real pain to get it clean again so that you can do something else that you're working on. I feel like this is probably, especially where the back of all these holes are open, give it, a month or two, it's gonna build up a little bit of rust back there again anyway, and these aren't gonna walk out. So that's on there. There's the bracket. Next up, let's get these bearings greased, and we'll get the rotor kind of put together and ready to slide on here. Okay, so you can grease your bearings a lot of different ways. I have one of these, I don't know what you want to call this thing. A greasy mess thing. What basically happens is you throw the bearing into here, you throw this plunger on, and you push that down, and I'll show you in a second. It takes a bit of pressure. And what it does is, you'll see on this bearing, forces the grease up through all these little holes in between the barrels. And then I will take and jam it into all the empty spot there, just to really get it filled up. And I'll do both sides. Give it a spin. This is a good time to have gloves on. If you're not a glove guy, you might be after doing bearings. So I'll do the next one, same thing. Put that one in upside down. So let me hook this thing out of here. They can get stuck in there with suction, but you want to go the cone side facing down. There's a cone inside there, and it's kind of the direction everything kind of sits in there and allows things to work their way up inside. Okay. It's easier to grab the bearing and pull it out when it's in the right direction too. So we got grease all the way through. It's already forced through the bearing. I still like to do it the old-fashioned way and kind of get some in there just to make sure that you're really, really good. Give it a rotation and make sure it works through all the areas inside that cage. It's a good opportunity to clean off your gloves a little too before you take them off. Get a new set or something. Okay, so I'm just adding a bunch of grease inside of this rotor. These rotors come with the bearing race already pressed into them. So I'm just loading it up. It's pretty much done. My heater kicked on and I didn't feel like waiting for it to shut off, so I kept kind of moving. So at this point, I'm going to take the inner bearing, drop it in, get it flat. And take the seal. I like to put a little grease on the edge of the seal, not drop it in there, just so it'll kind of slide in there a little bit better. All right. This is the messy part of the whole thing. And then I'm just going to tap it in just gently just to start it. Sometimes they're a little fidgety and kind of bounce around. Let's start over on this one. There we go. All right, that in there. And then I have a race/seal cup. I think it's a 72 millimeter. And I'm just gonna hammer this in until it's flat. You get a flat edge here, or as flat as it's gonna get for this kit anyway. Some cars you'll see, you'll hammer that in and they'll go flat right with the edge of the rotor. This particular seal doesn't seem to, but after doing the other side, I checked the back end of it, the back side of it, and it wasn't protruding against anything, so no big deal. Go over that after. So there is a spacer that goes in here. Per the directions, there's this beveled edge on it. They're telling you to put the bevel edge facing in, so that would end up sitting in there just like that. I'm gonna just take and kind of load it up with some grease, and that'll hold it in place while I slide the rotor on. And not drop it on the floor on the way over to the spindle. Okay, so that's loaded up. Let's move over there. Okay, so I'm going to grease up my spindle. Everything's cleaned up really well now, or as well as it's going to be. This area back here that I'm putting the grease on, that's where the seal rides on. So you really want to make sure that you get a good amount on there, especially with a brand new seal. I put a little grease on the inside of the seal too, but just kind of gets everything sliding off the, off the first turn here. Grease up the whole spindle just so everything slides on nice. Okay, so that's slid on there. Get it locked in. I'm going to load this side up with grease. Slide the new bearing in. It might fall out. Let me find my washer. Get this washer that I dropped. Got a little tooth on it. Only fits in one direction. That sits inside there. And then when you read the directions for this kit, it tells you that this nut may need specifically to the bay window kit, this nut may need the edges filed down. And I did find that is the case. It does interfere, and I'm going to show you what interferes, and I'm going to show you what I took off the other side and do the same thing with this one, just so that you can have an idea of where it's hitting and what the problem is. It's not so much of a problem, it's just a clearance. So here's your dust cover, really nice dust cover that they include with this. It's like a machined, I don't know what material this is, but it's a machined metal. When you go to put this on here, it's not going to fit. And let me bring you, see if we can show you. So this edge here and this edge here make it so that there's just not enough space for the thickness of this cap to slide in on that corner on either side. It just kind of, it's close, but it's not there. So let me pull this off and I'll bring you over and I'll show you what I had to grind off of it in order to get that to slide on easy. I'm going to pull this bolt out. Clean off the junk off of it. And then what you've got here is you've got this flat surface. This side is the side that is supposed to make contact with the washer that's over the bearing. This side out. So it sits like this. You've got a very square edge going through here. And if you look at it at this profile, you're very square on here. On both sides. This one tapers in a bit. This is very square. Let me, I'll bring you over to the grinder and I'll show you what I did. Okay. Okay, so we've got our axle nut here at the grinder. You could do this with a file. You could do it with a whiz wheel. I have this disc sander, so that's what I'm going to use. It works really well. Okay, so we've got the corners taken off this thing. It's probably hard to see it, but it's not a lot that you need. You're just taking just the actual corner off of it. And if I can figure out how to, I'll show the before and after of what this looked like and where the edges are taken down so that it fits. And let's get it on there. So I've cleaned this nut good to make sure there's no filings or anything left stuck in it that's going to get into, somehow work its way into the grease and the bearings. And we'll throw this on. I like to put these on hand tight, make sure everything spins good. And then there's a lot of different ways of doing this. Everybody has their own way of making sure that your bearing is the way you want it to be and has enough preload on it. I'm no expert by any means, so I'm not gonna exactly tell you, the right or wrong way to do it. This is the way I've done it for a lot of years, and you get a feel for it and kind of have a feel of where it is and what is tight for you and what feels right. And you can always, put it together and take it for a ride for a few miles and take a listen to it and see if you need to pull it apart and make it a little tighter or a little looser. I'm going to tighten up. That's where I like it right there. So I'm going to tighten up this set screw in it. I did find that the height of this edge here slightly interferes with getting in here with a standard Allen wrench to tighten that. I found one of these ball type Allen wrenches in the toolbox, and it makes it so you can kind of get in there and you can get it tight enough where everything's the way it's supposed to be and it's not going to move on you. So that's where I'm going to put it, right in there, and yeah, that's good and tight. And that's it for that part. Next part, let's grab the caliper, get that loaded up, and get it installed, and we'll keep moving. Okay, so here's our caliper. Real simple. It's GM stuff, so it's pretty easy. You get your brake pad, your outer pad. It's got the clips on it. There's small holes right in here. This pad, real simple, slides right in there. Make sure it's locked in. Everything's good. This inner pad, it's different looking. It's got this clip here that clips into the piston. Clip that right in like that. Another thing I'm going to do that I like to do, and you don't have to, but I like to put some anti-seize on the bleeder screw while I have it right here and I'm thinking about it. Have the right socket helps. So I like to just pull out bleeder screws on new calipers and put some anti-seize on them. It's just, future you will thank you when you go to bleed the brakes one day, assuming you keep cars as long as I generally do. And that thing's not totally seized in there. Anti-seize is a little bit of a mess. It gets all over everything. But it's worth it to not have an issue later. Just loosely tighten this back down so it doesn't drop out on us. The boot back on so we don't lose it. A little bit of mess, that's okay. The other thing I'm going to do now, while it's easily accessible, is I am going to install this hose onto here. See, so our caliper goes in this direction like that on the vehicle. This hose has a couple of notches in it, things like that going on that are probably more for the original application. I didn't find it fit exactly this direction with that notch, so I ended up going this direction with the notch up. The instructions show you putting the hose this way where it's headed towards, let's see, like towards the front of the bus, basically. That's what I did on the other side, and it worked out fine. I checked lock to lock, and everything's good on it. So that's how I'm going to do it on this side too. The way you're going to put this in is, if I can pick this up, you're going to take a one washer, put it on the banjo bolt. I'm a big fan of anti-seize. Then you're going to take your hose, if you can see this. You're going to drop your hose on here. Copper washer between it. Banjo bolt in. Let me grab that other socket. Not having a good time with sockets today here. All right. So we get that in there just like that. You see copper washer, hose, copper washer, banjo bolt through all of it. I'm going to tighten this down. You can always tighten it more when you get it on the truck. And that's what it's going to look like. You're going to have this stop right here, and then the edge of this hose is going to rest against it, and this won't be able to rotate at all because of that. So that's it. Let's get this thing over there. Pad fell out. Get this thing over there and get it installed. Okay, so this it's pretty simple. Make sure these are pushed back. Because of this hose being here, they get kind of stuck. And you're just gonna slide this on here. All right, that ready. Caliper has the way a floating caliper works is the caliper slides back and forth on the bolts that are attached to it. So once these bolts are tightened into the bracket, the caliper slides instead of everything else. So when this piston pushes out, this whole caliper is going to actually slide that way as you squeeze together here, and that'll draw this pad into it as it slides on these two bolts. So it's actually a pretty simple design. It's another thing that on this kit that I was happy that it was that way, and they use this type of a caliper because it's just easier. There's less parts. There's less surface area for a pad to bind up on, like a caliper that would have a bracket that the pads would sit into. I did find the directions talked about how these bolts would be, you'd have, clearance issues on the steering arm. It must be a situation with the split window, but with the bay window, it doesn't seem to be an issue. I was able to get this, in here pretty easily. Can't remember if I needed an extension. I'll say it was easy, and then it's not. There we go. It did require the extension on there. It's a little bit fiddly to try to get these to drop into the hole. But once you get it in there, you can feel it start threading in. If you don't get it all trapped on everything. And on these, I forget what the torque spec is, but there is a torque spec on them. I just always any calipers, this is the way I've always done it. You should do it the way that you feel comfortable with. Just turn that a bit. Better or worse? It's worse. Okay, good and tight. Next. We disconnect our old brake hose. This junk out of the way. Make sure you can see what's happening. Disconnect our old brake hose and get the new one in. Luckily, as I said, this bus I did brakes on it 2 years ago, I think. It has, I believe these are all original steel lines, and I was able to heat them up and get them loose. So
Hopefully this one comes loose again. The other side did nice. I put some anti-seize on them before I put them back together last time, so it makes it nice if it's something that you think you're going to have to take apart again, and it's not holding things together in a manner that you have to worry about it coming apart on its own. Anti-seize to me is your friend. Let's see if we can pull the clip out. The clip off. And you can get all this old drum brake stuff out of here. If you care about your floor, which watch out where you put it because there's going to be some brake fluid coming out. All right, we're all cleaned up there. There we go. Sometimes brake lines can be fiddly. If your brake line's not in very good shape, maybe try leaving this disconnected. Screw the brake hose into the line so that you don't have to move the line around as much. And that might help you to not destroy your steel line. I guess if it's real bad, you probably should replace it anyway, but I'm just gonna give this a turn to straighten out this brake hose. Get the brake hose into a position where it's not going to rub anything. And then we'll tighten this thing down, get the clip back in. Okay. Find sometimes these clips go on by hand almost, and then other times they really fight you. Unfortunately, this one's either the clip's a little bent or bracket's a little bent, something, but it's fighting a little. There we go. Okay, that's it. Excellent. What I didn't do yet, and I probably should have, is clean the surface of the rotor so that the shipping oils, I did it first on the other one, and I'm pretty sure I forgot already on this one. Throw a little brake clean on a rag. This setup doesn't have there's no backing plate, so you can pretty easily just clean the entire back side of the rotor and then do the front side. It's just the surface that the pad hits is what you want to kind of clean up. If you didn't do it, it probably wouldn't hurt too much, but it's good to get it off there just so you get, it can kind of get into your pads and contaminate them is the old thought on it. But okay, good and clean. All right, next, let's see about getting this cap on here. Now we've got these edges filed down, and you'll see this will slide. I mean, I can almost do that by hand. I got a mallet though. And that's it. Cap fits. We rotate it. If it was rubbing the inside of the cap, you would hear the nut rubbing on the cap because the cap is moving, the nut is stationary. So we're good there. Let me fight the speedometer cable, see if we can get that in. Sometimes they're easy, sometimes they're not. I did this one into last season. And oh, that was a nice one. Popped right in. Okay. If I can grab this clip. Nope, can't. And that's it. Speedo cable back on. Okay, next up comes your spacers, because right now you have a GM bolt pattern, which isn't going to fit a stock wheel, obviously. If you were going to run some kind of GM wheel, it might just fit the way it is. I'm not sure. But the way this kit is designed, you have this plate on first. That pushes everything out just a little bit. And then you have this thick adapter that's really pretty well made. I mean, all of this stuff, brackets, everything are really well made. Has the studs in it, everything fits right on. You've got, if I can get it on there, you've got nuts that hold this portion on. Get these in. And the directions, I believe, say to torque these down to 80 foot-pounds, which is pretty difficult to do when you don't have a wheel on this and don't have it on the ground. So what I'm going to do for right now is I'm just going to give them a couple blips just to hold everything together. And that's it. That's ready to go. Now, with this kit, it's designed to use this second spacer. If you're going to use stock 14-inch wheels, then you have to add this spacer to the front of it. According to everything I've read online and the website for this kit, it says that you're only going to push the wheel out 3/8 of an inch on each side, which if you've ever done a Beetle disc brake kit, or if you look at some of the other real common bus brake kits that are on the market that cost double what this one costs, it actually will push your wheel out even more. I want to say most of them are like 3/4 of an inch or so. So 3/8 is great. And if you're going to run a 15-inch wheel or an aftermarket 15-inch wheel, I guess, then, you know, like your aluminum wheels, then you don't even need that spacer, and you can mount your wheel back here, and it's pretty much the exact same as stock at that point for your offset, your wheel spacing. That was another thing that drew me to this. I'm not by any means a purist, but I try to keep, at least this truck, I'm trying to keep it as original looking on the outside as possible. I don't mind improvements like this to, go down the road a little cleaner and not have any problems and be able to stop in an emergency situation. So that's kind of the idea, that, it's nice that these can take the stock 14-inch wheel. Once I get them all bled out, I'll show you that. And I took a measurement before taking everything off on how far the wheel stuck out. I'll take another measurement the same way, and I'll show you the difference. And hopefully it's that 3/8 of an inch or less, or thereabouts, so that when you look at it, it'll look like pretty much a stock situation. The next thing that I do have to do, and it shows in the instructions, is this bus, because it had drums on the front, it has proportioning valves, I guess, is the right word for it. So on the brake master cylinder, there's one coming off each line that goes into the master cylinder, has a proportioning valve on it, or a residual pressure valve, I guess it really is. And the idea of that residual pressure valve is it holds pressure on the drum brake just slightly, so that your shoes stay expanded and they don't collapse all the way back in as they wear. It kind of holds it out there so that you have that movement, and you're not, lacking brakes, and you don't have a soft pedal because of it. So that's what we're going to do next. You have to take the residual pressure valve out of the brake master cylinder. Then you have to pull the cap off of it, take all the guts out of it, and then you put it back in, because it's essentially an adapter at that point to go from whatever the thread the master cylinder is to the thread of the brake line. So I've actually got an extra set of them, so I'm going to pull them apart in the vise before I take the other ones out of the cylinder and see how that goes. I'll show you what we got to do there. I'll figure it out. Okay, so here's these valves, residual pressure valves, and this is an extra set I had laying around, so I figured I'd pull these apart just in case I destroy one. I still have the two that are in the master, and that one on the floor. So the idea with these is hang on to them, and this is supposed to just be a steel cap. I've never had one of these apart because I've never had a reason to. So what I'm hoping is that this comes apart as easy as the instructions show, which it feels like it's already gonna, and it does. And what's in here is a spring. That's probably like an orifice where, I'm not really sure. Could be to proportion it basically, or keep pressure. And then it's got a check ball that sits inside of there. And it's another spring and another small piece of plastic here. So whole lot of stuff. Once that's out, I don't know if you can see that, but it's just a straight through hole once it's out. And that's what you're looking for, is you're just looking to go from this size thread back to the brake line. This will thread into the master cylinder. Brake line will thread into that, and you're just direct pressure. Whatever the pressure is of the brake master cylinder is going to go direct to the calipers, because disc brakes, that's just how they work. They don't need residual pressure valves. So, so that's it. So we got one done. Pull out the second one. It does come apart pretty easy. Get the other spring out, and again, we're straight through. So I'm going to clean these up. Going to have to get under the bus and get some brake lines disconnected, get these installed, brake lines back on, and then we're going to have to bleed all of the brakes on this thing. And then we can get it back down on the ground maybe. And there's snow on the ground outside my house right now, so probably going to wait a little bit to go for a test drive, but I'll get it all together in one, hopefully in one video. Okay, so we're climbing under the bus. Here's the brake master cylinder. You've got one valve here, and on the other side, I don't know if you can see it, there's another one just across from it. There is a third one up in here, I don't know if you can see up there, it's pretty tight. That is for the rear brakes. So that one we leave alone. It's just these two up in here that need to be swapped out. This one here and the one on the other side. This job's probably easier to do with the brake master cylinder out of the vehicle. This master is 2 years old. I don't really want to take the whole thing out, so I'm going to try to take these out with it in there and see how it goes. Not sure if I can. I know I can't do it with one hand, so I may have to just show you afterwards, but at least you can see where they are and what they are and what needs to be done. So be right back. Okay, so I got the residual pressure valves changed out to the ones that we removed the center out of. That's the passenger side replaced. I did put new copper washers in. That's the driver's side one replaced. Very messy job. I don't know if it would be easier to take the master cylinder out and do it, or if doing it this way is easier. My brake lines are pretty tight in there, so it's hard to get the brake line out once you get it unthreaded. I ended up loosening these two nuts that hold the master cylinder in, and it let it kind of lay down just a hair so that I could pop the line out of here, push it off to the side so that I could get this valve out. I'll have to just keep an eye on it, make sure nothing's leaking. I do have to now bleed all the brakes, and then we can get it back down on the ground and see how we did. Okay, I got the brakes bled. I threw the wheels back on so I can torque all these lug nuts. The center ones go to 80 pounds, so I want to get those done. There's a little bit of weight on the bus, but I have the jack stands out, but the jack is still really supporting everything. So I want to get these Okay, this side's good on the center bolts to the hub. I'll go around after and torque down the regular lug nuts. I gotta look up the spec. I think it's 90 because they're 14 millimeter. We'll get that done and I'll go do the other side. Okay, here it is, back down on the ground. Easy stop brake kit installed. I don't see a noticeable difference in the amount the wheel is sticking out. The way I measured it last time, kind of crude, but I went flat against the door, leveled it, and got flat to the hubcap. So I would say that we are sticking out if we're right against the hubcap, it's that amount.
That's the difference right in there. If I keep the level straight, it is probably, and it's to the door, it is probably about 3/8, maybe a little less. Either way, it's definitely not noticeable. Definitely looks good too. Hope it drives as good as it looks. We need a little bit warmer weather before we can take her out and see how it goes, but pedal feels firm. I haven't adjusted the pedal. Some people say they have to adjust the pedal afterwards. Doesn't seem to be that way, but we'll see. I took this panel out so I wouldn't pour brake fluid all over it. And I've got that much free play. And then right here, it starts getting hard and I can't push it past that with my hand. So probably 2 inches of travel in there. So I think it's going to be really good. I got brake fluid down in here. All right. We'll get rid of this snow and bring you back and see how things go. I did try to fit the wheel without the extra spacer. They said it wouldn't, you know, you'd need the extra spacer being a 14-inch wheel, and it just barely needs it. It scrapes the edge of the caliper. You can see where it touched the caliper, and it was maybe a 1/4 inch into the edge of the caliper. So it makes sense that you need that. I was just curious if you could do it without. All right, thank you. All right, today's the day. We're going on a test drive. See how these brakes work. I adjusted out the rear brakes. Everything seems pretty good. We did our annual oil change. We'll see how these things work out. Oh yeah, already better than the drums were. And they stopped, so let's see what we got. Excellent. I'm just barely stepping on it now. I got this nice straight road here that we usually, it's my brake job test road right here. A little bit of speed going. Yeah, nope, that's great. Yeah, these will work out just fine. That's awesome.
That's probably, I could push a lot harder, but that's definitely good.
Okay, so recap here. We installed the Type E Motorsports Easy Stop brake kit on the front of my 68 single cab. The thing I like about it is the parts that you use are, the parts included with the kit are great quality. Everything fit perfect. The parts that you purchase on your own are all standard easy stuff, which is great for me. To me, that's easy to get new ones and replacements when necessary. The wheels, supposedly a 3/8 inch difference in the track, so the wheels are going to stick out 3/8 of an inch further than they would with stock stuff on it. I actually measure and it's just a hair below that, so that's awesome. You look at it and you really can't tell that anything's been changed. They stop great. Pedal feel is actually, to me, it feels much better because I had a very hard pedal in this truck, as I think I told you. So it made it feel like you were putting a lot of effort in and not getting anything out of it. With these brakes, I feel like I'm barely putting any effort in. The pedal feels, I don't want to say soft, but it's firm, but it's an easy push. And you push the pedal down and it's just, you're stopping. You hang on because you're stopping. Everything works great. So I guess the last thing I have to do is the last piece that was included with this kit was this nice Type E sticker. So that's what we're going to end this with, is we're going to put this sticker on. Excuse my fingers. Get this guy on here pretty straight. And that's it. Type E Motorsports making an awesome kit. Thanks to them for making it. And thanks to everybody else for watching this video. I don't know if I'll make more videos, but I just wanted to kind of give everybody an idea of how this kit was and the things I liked about it and the things that, make it worth buying and make it worth doing the conversion on it. So, all right, thank you.